What if we can positively impact society by reshaping the mindsets of young men? And while we're at it, let me ask you, what does it mean to be a man? My name is Dennis Meralda, a father, a teacher, a coach, a mentor, and a principal with over 2 decades of experience shaping the minds and characters of young men across the United States. If these questions resonate, if you're a young man looking to improve your life or a parent looking for tools to help your son become the best version of himself, the Building Men podcast was created for you. What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Building Men podcast, or welcome back if you are a longtime listener. This is your host, Dennis Meralda, creator of the Building Men program, bringing you an all elusive solo cast today. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about a recent experience that I had facilitating Building Men meetings in middle schools and in high schools in both New Jersey and a school district that I work in the Minneapolis area. And I'm going to set it up with talking about a guy named Joe Ehrmann. Joe Ehrmann was a football player, defensive end for the Baltimore Colts in the late 1970s. Joe was a larger than life, demonstrative, charismatic type human being, life of the party kind of guy. Definitely lived the professional football player lifestyle. So drinking, partying, hanging out with as many girls as humanly possible, but still a good man. And this was before the Colts moved from Baltimore to Indianapolis. And Joe Ehrmann had a younger brother whose name was Billy, and Billy is about, say, a decade younger than Joe. And Joe, during his football career, he had time for his brother, but he didn't invest in him fully because obviously he's traveling around, he's playing football, he's partying, he's hanging out with as many girls as possible, like I mentioned. And what happens after one of the seasons that Joe is playing in the NFL is he gets a call from his parents to rush home as quickly as possible. And when he arrives at home, he gets the news that his younger brother Billy has an inoperable brain tumor. And Joe sits at his bedside and watches his younger brother Billy deteriorate and die in a very, very quick amount of time. So Joe is left in this position thinking, holy God, what was I doing? What was this about? My younger brother needed me. I wasn't there for him. And it was this gut punch, this reality check when Joe started to think about, okay, what am I doing in the world? What is my purpose here? The reason why I bring up this story of Joe, and I'm going to play about a 3-minute video clip of a TED Talk that Joe Ehrmann did in Baltimore. I'm going to bring up Joe because he was actually one of the reasons why I started the Building Men podcast and the Building Men program in 2005. To learn more about our programs, including one-on-one mentorship coaching, the foundation, our Building Men online group community for young men, or to bring a Building Men experience to your school, check out our website, buildingmen.io, or click the links in the bio. Now, back to the show. So there was a book written by author Jeffrey Marks, and the book was called A Season of Life. So Jeffrey Marks was a ball boy for the Baltimore Colts in the late 70s, so he knew Joe growing up. And as they were demolishing the stadium where the Baltimore Colts once played, he wanted to write a book, a memoir of sorts about his experience as a ball boy and what the players were doing now, that kind of thing. And when he connected with Joe Ehrmann, he realized, well, Joe had a really interesting story and his life had taken a big turn in a totally different direction. So Joe, again, was a football player, and after leaving professional football, he became a minister, and then he became a teacher and a coach at an exclusive school, private school in the Baltimore area called Gilman Academy. And Joe started coaching football for them. And Jeffrey Marks, the author, now starts following around Joe during a season as he's interviewing him to talk about his experience in the Baltimore Colts in the 1970s. And what he recognizes was that the book was not going to be about the Colts. It was going to be about Joe Ehrmann and his the other coach that he works with. The guy's name is Buzz, and the way that they coach young men on this football team. And basically what they do is it's totally different. One of the things that they say to the boys in the very beginning of the season, and this is something that Jeffrey Marks was really taken back by, he gets the boys together in the very beginning and he says to the boys, and they, he asks them a question, they chant back in unison. He says, "Young men, what is our job as coaches?" And they say, "To love us." And then he says to them, "And what is your job as a player?" And then the boys chant back, "To love each other." And when I think about that, it gives me chills thinking about this happening in an elite football program, that this is what was going on there. So the reason why I connect this to Joe Ehrmann was reading the book A Season of Life for me back in 2005 was one of the catalysts for starting the Building Men program with the boys in the school where I was working. When I read the book, I recognized that there is the possibility to create community, to create a level of space for boys to come and to talk about what does it really mean to be a man. So that's the setup. I'm going to play a very quick video about Joe Ehrmann. So this will be Joe at a TED Talk. And the TED Talk, I believe, was in the Baltimore area. I'm going to play it for about 3 minutes, and then I'm going to stop it, and I'll talk about the impact that it had on me and then how I use this with the groups of boys that I'm working with currently.
I'm going to talk about 3 words today. 3 words that are a phrase that have become one of the most culturally destructive mandates in this culture. Now, if we could change these words, we would change the world. But in order to rewire and reframe these words, you need some kind of laboratory. You need some kind of delivery system to make it practical. So I'm going to take my 3 words and I'm going to dump them into the world of sports. Why sports? Well, think about the role that sports plays in the globe and in America. Sports will engage more individuals, more families, more communities in a shared activity than any cultural activity, organization, or religion in America. It has become the secular religion of this society. And there's a transmission of values, the transmission of this phrase that does tremendous amounts of destruction. Second reason, sports. Historically, sports have always been a metaphor for social change. Until recently, when we've moved into this win-at-all-cost kind of mentality, sports have always been a way to integrate immigrants into American culture. Every ethnic group that's ever been ghettoized, sports has created a way out of that ghetto. When you talk about civil rights, when you talk about women's rights, when you talk about human rights, you think of the role that sports and athletics have helped to play to bring them into the political and mainstream consciousness. I want to take my redefined phrase and have sports move that out. So what is the phrase? I want to say it's the 3 scariest words that every man receives in his lifetime. And the phrase is to be a man. And I'd ask every man listening to this, you think about the context when you were young and someone told you to be a man. It was almost always in the context of stop acting that way. Stop with the tears, stop with the emotions. Don't be some kind of mama's boy, some kind of sissy. Be a man. And what young boys are taught at a very early age, that in order to be a man, they've got to separate their hearts from their heads. Boys are taught that they have emotions, to show them, to share them, to emote them. Somehow those things are considered signs of masculine failure. So we have this massive repression of the very thing that makes us human, makes us contributors in this world. So let me show you what the socialization process looks like in America. 5, 6, 7 years old, every boy is given that mandate. Then this enculturation process gives every boy 3 fundamental lies about what it means to be a man. The same lies that were fed to me when I was a boy are being fed to boys today. And the first lie is this, and I think every boy in America learns this by the time they're 7, 8, 9 years old. They learn this on ball fields and playgrounds and during recess all over their community. That is, as a culture, we associate masculinity with athletic ability or size or strength or some kind of skill set that allows you to compete on that playground and win. So what happens for those boys that have athletic interests and abilities that can catch the down and out, hit the hanging curve, those boys are elevated on that playground. They're given a little more value, a little more worth. They're even ascribed a little more masculinity. And what I want to say, that is an absolute lie. Being a man doesn't have a single thing to do with athletic ability, size, strength, and the capacity to compete and win. Second lie every boy in America learns today by the time they're in junior high school, and that is we associate masculinity with issues of sexual conquest. What's it mean to be a man? It means you can bring some young girl alongside of yourself and then use her. Use her to either gratify some kind of physical need or use her to validate some kind of masculine insecurity. That certainly doesn't make you a man. That makes you a user of other human beings. Then later on, you get the third lie in this culture, and that is we associate masculinity with issues of economic success, as though you can measure what a man is based on his job title, his position, power, or the amount of possessions someone has accumulated.
So, whoa, right? That is, that's a lot right there. And when you think about it, if you've ever listened to the Building Men podcast before, and if you haven't, go back and listen to episode 193. It's December 15th of 2023. I give you a little historical context there. So if you do listen, and if you have listened, you understand why what you just listened to right there by Joe Ehrmann, the TED Talk, resonated with me on such a deep level. Basically, I grew up in a household where those three ideals of false masculinity were beat down into my head every single day. I've heard the phrase, be a man, man up, stop being a sissy, stop being a pussy more times than I could even count. So if you recognize that, and if you're a man, if you're listening to this, that likely resonated in some way, shape, or form, that whole idea of being a man. Well, here's the deal. If that's what we're hearing from society, if it's, hey, be a man, man up, grow a sack, grow a pair, right? Stop being a pussy, right? If those are the things that we're hearing, we don't have an idea about what it actually means then to be a man. If that's what we're being told to be a man, what does it even mean? What does that even mean? I'm out in schools right now and I'm talking to young men about it, and I'm like, all right, let's define what it means to be a man then, if that's such an important part of who we are growing up, right? We're trying to get through our experience in school, graduate from high school, get into a college or career, and understand what it means to be a man, but we're never really taught. So what does it mean then? And what I did with the boys was we basically created an idea. We described it on a deeper level, and it had nothing to do with physical dominance, sexual conquest, or economic material possessions or economic success. And these were the things that we talked about in the Building Men group in recent meetings. So I'm going to go one by one talking about some of the things that we discussed. So, okay, if it's not about those things, then what is it? What does it really mean to be a man? And each of these things are things that in a Building Men program, we unwrap, we uncover, we peel back the layers, and we really, really talk about it. And when you think about a group of, in each group, say 15 or 20 boys getting together, sharing their own life experiences, talking about, well, with each one of these things that I'm going to mention, how does it hit for them? Do they have any schema or any background in this specific area? What's their opinion on it? To be able to share that opinion in a safe space with other young men, it's a really, really powerful thing. And then after we talk about it, okay, how do we put these things into action? What does it mean then? Okay, it's one thing to talk about it, but it's not just what we say, it's what we do. So how do we put this into action? So here they are, again, in no particular order. We talked about a man having a purpose or a higher meaning? What is your reason for being on this planet? Right? Being born is one of the most rare things that could ever happen in the history of the world, right? The odds of you being conceived is like 1,000,000,000 to 1, and you are here. So, what are you going to do with that time on this planet? What is your reason for being here? Now, this might be more of a spiritual or religious calling, or it could be like building men for me is my purpose. That's my higher meaning. We talked about a man having utility. He is effective and competent. Can he do the stuff, right? Or do you have to call another man to come over and do the stuff for you? And listen, with an internet in your hand at all times, being able to call up how to do anything ever, right? YouTube, you can go and check it out. How do you do anything right now? Learn how to do things. So we talk about being competent, being effective, having that utility to be able to do things. A man takes radical responsibility. One of the big pillars in our Building Men program, one of our character pillars is accountability. And it's a thing that we take really, really seriously. So if you've done something wrong, then own it. Like take that radical responsibility. And when I talk to the boys about it, I'm not like just in this moment. Historically, if you've done something wrong and gotten away with it, go back and apologize to your teacher last year because you cheated on a test, or when you blamed your younger sister for doing something that you did, go own that, right? Because then that weight is off of your shoulders moving forward. A man acts with integrity. Integrity is something we talk about very early on in a Building Men program. Integrity is doing the right thing when no one is watching. I often will pull out a quote by old New York Jets coach. He coached for the Chiefs and he played for the Eagles in the 70s and 80s, which Herm Edwards. And Herm Edwards talks about doing the right thing when no one's watching, and he takes it a step further and he says, "What is done in darkness will always come to light." So that's something that we talk about as well. A man is honest and communicates in a straightforward manner, not a passive aggressive communicator or overly aggressive communicator, communicating directly and in an honest manner. So your word is your bond. Are you going, can people believe you when you say you're going to do something? A man acts with courage. And we talk about it all the time. There's going to be really challenging things that are happening in your life as a young man. I don't sugarcoat it. Like, listen, there's going to be things that suck. You're going to have loss in your life. You're going to be met with challenging situations, but you need to have the courage to get through it. And when fear is at your doorstep, what do? Do you hide from it, or do you walk into that fire? A man is physically strong and can protect. Now, Joe Ehrmann talks about physical dominance being something that is false masculinity. And I agree with him. It doesn't mean that you have to bench 315, have a six pack, be able to dunk, be the toughest guy in the block. But where I diverge a little bit from Joe is I believe as a man, you need to be able to handle yourself physically. So if you're in your house and the wolf is at the door, is your family able to count on you to protect them in a difficult situation? So what does that mean? It means, having a healthy lifestyle as far as your nutrition is concerned, getting to the gym, lifting weights, having some level of cardiovascular help. I do think that those things are important for a young man to have. A man is humble. He doesn't need to show off. He doesn't have to tell everyone how great he is. He lets his actions speak for himself. So that's something we talk about. A big character pillar for building men is the idea of humility. A man has self-discipline. So what are the things that you're doing on a regular basis? Like that daily checklist that you have. We talk a lot about being accountable, the amount of time you're spending on your phone. What time are you waking up? Are you getting your schoolwork done? Are you doing your chores? The things that you're supposed to do. So that goes into self-discipline. A man does what he says he is going to do. So if I say I'm going to be somewhere, am I there? We talk about it as a group. If you say you're going to do something, then do it. If you say you're going to show up, then show up. If you say you're going to take care of something, then take care of it. Your word is your bond. A man is other centered. So while we do need self-discipline, we need to be other centered. So what can you do in service of other people? And I talk to the boys about it all the time as well. And I say, listen, here's a capital T truth that I've learned about life is that when you do something kind for another person, you do something that you can help another person breathe a little bit easier. You feel really good. So one of the challenges that we have, a monthly challenge, is I say to the boys, listen, within the next month, what I want you to do is at least one time do something kind for another person without any expectation of reciprocation. You're not asking for anything in return. You're not doing it to get the pat on the back, the smiley face, the scoop of ice cream, the extra allowance. You just do it because it's the right thing to do. A man is a leader. There are different kinds of leaders, right? There are the leaders that are the rah-rah people that are standing up in front, motivating everyone. There are the leaders, the quiet individuals that just get up and just put in the reps day after day after day. And by doing it, other people are following along. A man is kind, he's compassionate, and he's patient. So, can we balance all of these ideas of strength and stoicism with these ideas of kindness, compassion, and like being able to be there for other people, being empathetic, putting your arm around someone when they're going through something really, really challenging? A man is committed to self improvement. So, are they waking up in the morning thinking about carpe diem, seize the day? Can I do something today to add value to myself and to the world? A man is intelligent and a lifelong learner. Another thing we talk about is, you know, the things that they're learning in school, that the boys are learning in school, it might not be of the utmost interest to them on a regular basis, but when you have an opportunity to learn something, take that opportunity. And then it goes back to that idea of being competent, effective, and having utility. So you can potentially learn something, and it might not benefit you right then and there in that moment, but down the road in the future, you might be able to draw on one of those learning experiences that you've had to help yourself or another person in the future as well. And then finally, I have a man fosters loving relationships. And I do believe life is, when you really, really break it down to the core, life is about relationships, right? Life is about who are the people that, you think about when you're on your deathbed. Who are those people that when you wake up in the morning, you want to do good because of these other people? So, what can you do to lean in and foster loving relationships? And then my big two are, the idea of fostering loving relationships and then also having a purpose. Those are the two that I would set apart. And when I did this activity with the boys, it was really interesting. So the way that I did it was I put every one of those 16 ideas, concepts up on a gigantic piece of chart paper, and I gave each boy 4 stickers. They were red, green, yellow, and blue. And we ranked them. Your red was your number 1. Your green was your number 2, your yellow was your number 3, and your blue was your number 4. And I said, okay, now you have these 4 stickers. What I want you to do is pick out the top 4. What are the 4 things that you think are the most important for you as you're growing into your idea of what it means to be a man? Like, these are your top 4. So of the 16, they had to really narrow it down. These are my top 4, and then categorize my first, my second, my third, and my fourth. And something really interesting happened. So say if I did this with a group of 100 boys, every single one of those things that I just mentioned, all 16 of them they had at least 1 or 2 stickers on every single one. Every single one of those. At least one of the boys in the group thought it was one of the most important things for him in his life growing up, understanding what it meant to be a man. So I thought that was really, really fascinating. A couple of things that really stuck out with the boys as we were doing it was the idea of having a higher purpose or meaning, being physically strong and being able to protect, having radical or taking radical responsibility, self-discipline, and fostering loving relationships. Those were the cream of the crop when I met with the young men. And that really warmed my heart, thinking after a year going through this Building Men program, that those were the things they talked about. The other thing that I did was I left a blank space for them to add in anything that I left off of the list. So I would challenge you, if you're listening right now, if there are things, if you have any ideas about what I left off that should be included in the future, please let me know. Shoot me an email, buildingmencoach@gmail.com. Let me know, what did I leave off of that list that you believe should be added. I also want to give a shout out to my man, Mark Picard, before I conclude this episode today. Mark is the creator of podcastproducer.com. He produces the Building Men podcast. He also is the creator of Stupid Simple Marketing. He did the Building Men website. He does our social media clips, and he produces the podcast. I cannot say enough positive things about Mark Picard. I truly love this man. He is one of the most selfless people I've ever met. If you're interested in any way, shape, or form of starting your own podcast, or you need assistance with building a brand or marketing, reach out to Mark. Tell him that I sent you. He's also the one that created the Building Men logo. He was the one who added the color pink into our logo. He'll be on a future episode of Building Men, and I cannot say enough positive things about Mark. Just a truly genuine human being, and I love him with all sincerity. The other thing I wanted to let you know is that I'll be doing a summer, like a Building Men boot camp, and it'll be an 8-week program. I'll meet with young men in middle school and in high school once a week over the course of the summer, and it'll be via Zoom, and we'll be talking about these life lessons that I just spoke about here. There will be a daily habit that we'll be incorporating in every one of our meetings. There will be rites of passage as a group. There'll be physical challenges. There will be acts of kindness that we're going to talk about. We will have readings that we'll be doing. There'll be accountability check-ins, and more than anything else, there will be a community of young men getting together with the idea that they're trying to learn something, and they're doing these things for their own self-improvement and self-growth to be able to help other people in the world. So if you're interested in having your son a part of this program, again, it'll be middle school and high school young men. Please reach out to me. You could get the information. buildingmen.io is the website, or again, email me, buildingmencoach@gmail.com. If you haven't done so already, I would ask you to consider rating the Building Men podcast, writing a review on Apple and on Spotify. And more than anything else, if this episode resonated in any way, shape, or form, consider sharing it out, posting about it, sharing it out with anyone that you think might get any sort of value from the message. The way I end every single Building Men meeting is the same way that I end every single podcast. I appreciate you listening, and go one step further than you thought you could go. We will see you next time on Building Men.